Hana woke to the sound of a medical scanner humming near her head. Her eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the bright lights of the dropship's medical bay. Every part of her body ached with a deep, persistent pain that suggested serious injury and recent treatment. Junho's face appeared above her, his breathing apparatus making soft, clicking sounds. His large eyes were filled with concern and something else. Respect, maybe. Or fear. "Do not move," he said quickly. "Your shoulder was dislocated. 3 ribs were fractured. You lost significant blood. The medical system has stabilized you, but you need rest." Hana tried to sit up anyway. Pain lanced through her torso, and she immediately regretted the decision. She settled back down with a grimace. "The others?" she managed to ask. "Alive. All of us." Junho's voice carried a strange tone, like he was still processing what had happened. "Minji has a fractured carapace and internal injuries. Jiwon's wing was broken but has been set. Dohyun is recovering from mental strain. Taemin has bruised organs and cracked armor plating, but nothing life-threatening. The mission? Completed. Taemin retrieved all 3 beacons while you were unconscious. We reached the extraction point. The trial is over." Junho paused, his aquatic features making expressions that were hard for Hana to read. "You saved us. You saved all of us. That creature would have killed the entire squad if you had not." He trailed off, unable to find words for what she had done. Hana closed her eyes. The fight was already becoming fragmented in her memory. Pieces of it remained crystal clear. The feel of the knife sinking into scaled flesh, the weight of the render on top of her, the taste of her own blood mixed with alien dirt. Other parts were fuzzy, actions taken on pure instinct that her conscious mind had not fully registered. "Is it still there?" she asked. "The render?" The Academy team examined it. They seemed very interested in how it died. Junho hesitated. "Hana, that creature was a Class 8 Alpha Predator. The weapon that killed it was a standard-issue combat knife. The physical strength required to penetrate that deep through scales and muscle and bone should not be possible for someone your size." Hana opened her eyes again. "How long was I unconscious?" 16 hours. We are approaching the Academy now. 16 hours. The mission had lasted 3 days total. They had completed it ahead of schedule, though not in any way the instructors had anticipated. The medical bay door opened and Taemin entered. He had to duck to fit through the human-sized doorway. His scales were bandaged in several places and he moved carefully, like someone who had discovered that he was not as invincible as he had believed. He looked at Hana for a long moment before speaking. "I owe you my life. You would have done the same," Hana said, though she was not entirely sure that was true. "No." Taemin's voice was firm. "I would not have. When that render had me pinned, I was terrified. I thought I was dead. My warrior training, my species' proud tradition, all of it meant nothing against a creature designed by evolution to kill. I accepted my death." He sat down heavily on a medical bench, his massive frame making it creak. "You did not accept anything. You saw death coming and you ran toward it with a knife and a rock. That is not warrior spirit. That is not combat training. That is something else entirely." Jiwon entered next, walking carefully on her unbroken wing and one leg. The other leg had been splinted. Her feathers were still disheveled, missing patches where the render's tail had struck her. "The Academy instructors are calling it the most significant crucible trial incident in 20 years, she said without preamble. "A Class 8 Alpha Predator, defeated in single combat by a first-year cadet. They have already started reviewing the helmet camera footage." She looked at Hana with her large avian eyes. "I mocked you. I called your world primitive. I suggested you could not understand civilized behavior." Her feathers fluffed in what might have been shame. "I was wrong. Completely, utterly wrong." Dohyun entered last, moving slowly, his face still pale. His mental abilities made him sensitive to emotional states, and the trauma of the fight had clearly affected him deeply. "I tried to read the render's mind during the fight," he said quietly. "It was like drowning in an ocean of pure predatory instinct. No mercy, no fear, just the drive to hunt and kill. It nearly broke me." He looked at Hana with something approaching awe. "Then I felt your mind. Your emotions during the fight. And I finally understood." "Understood what?" Hana asked. "Why Earth is classified as Class 12. It is not just that your planet is hostile. Many planets are hostile. It is that your species evolved to meet that hostility with absolute refusal to surrender. You felt fear during the fight. I sensed it clearly. But the fear did not control you. It informed you. You were terrified and you charged anyway. The door opened again and Instructor Valen entered. His scarred face was unreadable as he looked at each of the cadets in turn. Medical team has cleared all of you for debriefing, he said. We will discuss the mission parameters, tactical decisions, and lessons learned. But first, I need to speak with Cadet Hana privately. The others filed out, leaving Hana alone with the instructor. He pulled up a chair and sat down, his armored bulk making the furniture look like a child's toy. How are you feeling? He asked. Like I fought an apex predator with a knife, Hana replied honestly. Valen's scarred face cracked into a smile. That is because you did. The medical team analyzed your injuries. Dislocated shoulder, 3 fractured ribs, multiple lacerations, significant blood loss, and tissue damage consistent with massive blunt force trauma. You should have been incapacitated after the first hit. I have been hurt worse, Hana said. It was not quite true, but it was not quite a lie either. I believe you. Valen leaned back in his chair. Do you know why I was unsurprised by what you did? Hana shook her head. Because I have been to Earth. 5 years ago, during the initial contact mission, we spent 6 months studying your planet before making formal contact with your governments. And in those 6 months, I learned something that the classification reports do not adequately convey. He gestured at Hana. Every human I met, from scientists to soldiers to civilians, carried the same quality you demonstrated on Carvex 9. Resilience, persistence, the absolute refusal to quit. Your species has survived ice ages, supervolcanoes, pandemics, and self-inflicted near extinctions. And every time you adapt and continue. Valen stood up. The other cadets mocked you because they did not understand. They come from garden worlds where evolution was gentle, where intelligence developed in peaceful environments, where strength meant size and natural weapons. He walked to the viewport looking out at the approaching Academy station. But you come from a world where the oceans can boil you alive, where microscopic organisms wage war in your bloodstream constantly, where the weather itself is a daily threat. Humans did not get tough because you are stupid. You got tough because anything less than that level of resilience died before reproducing. Hana tried to process what he was saying. So you knew I could handle the render? No. Valen turned back to her. I knew that you would try, even if it meant your death. That is what makes humans dangerous. Not your strength or speed or weapons. Your willingness to face impossible odds and fight anyway. There was a long silence. What happens now? Hana finally asked. Now you recover. Then you continue training. The galaxy needs to learn what humanity can contribute to the coalition. And more importantly, your fellow cadets need to understand that they judged an entire species based on superficial observations. He moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. The squad has requested that you remain their teammate for advanced training. Taman specifically insisted. He said, and I quote, I want to learn how to fight like a human. Valen left, and Hana was alone with her thoughts and her pain. Through the viewport, she could see the academy growing larger. Somewhere in that massive station, thousands of cadets were training to be soldiers and peacekeepers. Most of them probably still thought of humans as primitive curiosities from a death world. That was fine. Let them think what they wanted. Hana had learned something important on Carvex 9. Earth had not made humans strong. Earth had made humans survivors. And in a galaxy full of warriors from peaceful worlds, sometimes survival mattered more than strength. She closed her eyes and let the exhaustion pull her back toward sleep. In a few days, she would be healed enough to walk. In a few weeks, she would be ready to train again. And the next time someone taunted the human cadet, they might think twice about what that actually meant. The dropship shook violently as it entered Carvex 9's atmosphere. Hana gripped her harness straps and watched through the viewport as purple storm clouds rushed past. Lightning crackled across the sky, but this lightning was wrong. It glowed with bioluminescent colors, greens and blues that nature on Earth never produced. The entire planet seemed alive and angry at their intrusion. Taman sat across from her, completely relaxed despite the turbulence. His massive form barely moved as the ship bucked and swayed. He was cleaning his rifle, checking the plasma coils with practiced ease. Beside him, Jiwon had her eyes closed, probably reviewing tactical data through her neural implant. Do-hyun stood near the cockpit, mentally coordinating with the pilot. His telepathic abilities made him valuable for communication, though Hana still found his mental probing uncomfortable. Minji clung to the ceiling with her forearms, her compound eyes watching everything at once. Yunyo had sealed his breathing apparatus and was reviewing aquatic terrain maps, hoping to find rivers or lakes where he would have advantage. 2 minutes to landing zone, the pilot announced. Valen emerged from the cockpit, his armored bulk somehow moving gracefully in the cramped space. He looked at each cadet with his scarred face, making sure they were ready. "Listen carefully," he said. "Carvex 9 is not forgiving. The jungle canopy is 300 meters tall in places. Visibility at ground level is less than 20 meters. The local fauna is aggressive and territorial. Your mission is simple but not easy. 3 data beacons are scattered along your route to the extraction point. Retrieve all 3 and reach extraction within 72 hours. He pulled up a holographic map. Red dots marked the beacon locations, spread across 40 kilometers of dense jungle. The extraction point sat at the far north edge of the operational area. Standard equipment only. No rescue unless someone is critically wounded. The Academy wants to see how you perform under real pressure." Valen's eyes lingered on Hana for a moment. "Some of you come from peaceful worlds. Some from harsh ones. Carvex 9 does not care about your background. It will try to kill you all equally." The ship broke through the cloud layer and Hana got her first real look at the planet. The jungle stretched to the horizon, a carpet of purple and crimson vegetation that looked nothing like Earth's forests. The trees were massive, their trunks wider than buildings, their canopy so thick it blocked most of the sunlight. Strange flying creatures circled between the branches, too distant to identify. The ship landed in a small clearing, its engines blasting the undergrowth flat. The exit ramp lowered and humid air rushed in. Hana felt the temperature immediately. Hot and wet like breathing soup. Her uniform's climate control activated, trying to compensate. Taemin was first down the ramp, his rifle ready. Jiwon took flight immediately, circling above the clearing to scout for threats. Dohyun descended more carefully, his mental senses reaching out to probe the jungle around them. Hana came down last, her boots sinking slightly into the soft ground. The soil was dark purple, rich with organic matter. Strange fungi grew in clusters near the tree roots, glowing faintly with the same bioluminescent color she had seen in the lightning. The ship lifted off as soon as they were clear. The engine roar faded quickly, swallowed by the jungle's ambient noise. And there was so much noise. Clicking, buzzing, howling sounds came from every direction. The jungle was alive with creatures they could not see. "Formation," Dohyun commanded, his voice calm and authoritative. "Taemin, take point. Your predator instincts will alert us to danger. Jiwon, aerial reconnaissance. Stay within visual range. Minji and Junho, flanks. Hana, rearguard, rearguard." The least important position, given to the weakest member of the squad. Hana accepted it without comment and checked her rifle one more time. They moved into the jungle in standard tactical formation. Taemin led with confident strides, his reptilian eyes scanning for threats. The undergrowth was thick, forcing them to cut through vines and push past strange plants that pulled away from contact. Hana noticed things the others missed. Claw marks on a tree trunk, too high for any ground predator. Fresh marks, the sap still oozing. Territorial scent markings that her human nose could barely detect but registered as wrong, as dangerous. The way smaller creatures went silent when they approached certain areas. "Dohyun," she called quietly, "we should go around this section. Something large marked this territory recently." The Mentari glanced back at her, his expression dismissive. "Your fear responses are hyperactive because you evolved among constant threats. We are trained soldiers, not frightened prey animals. We continue forward." Hana bit back her response and kept walking. She had learned that arguing with squad leaders only made them more stubborn. The jungle grew denser as they traveled. The canopy above blocked out most of the sunlight, leaving them in a twilight gloom. The bioluminescent fungi provided some light, casting everything in eerie colors. Strange insects the size of Hana's hand crawled across tree trunks, their carapaces gleaming like metal. After 4 hours of hiking, they reached the first beacon. It sat on a fallen log, a simple cylinder marked with coalition symbols. Minji retrieved it with 2 of her hands while the other 2 kept her rifle ready. "One down," Taemin said with satisfaction. "See, this is easy. Class 8 is barely a challenge." Jiwon landed beside them, folding her wings. "The next beacon is 12 kilometers northeast. We should make camp soon. The local day-night cycle is only 18 hours and darkness comes quickly." They found a defensible position near a massive tree root system. The roots formed a natural shelter, and Junho used his technical skills to set up a perimeter alarm system. Simple but effective, it would alert them if anything large approached. Taemin insisted on hunting for fresh food, claiming his species needed live prey to maintain peak condition. He returned an hour later with something that looked like a six-legged rabbit, already dead. He ate it raw while the others consumed their ration packs. Hana volunteered for first watch but was refused. "Your senses are inferior to Jiwon's," Do-hyun said. "She will take first watch. You need rest more than the rest of us." So Hana lay in her bedroll, listening to the jungle sounds, unable to sleep. Her instincts screamed that something was wrong. The way the local animals moved, the patterns in their calls, the fresh territorial markers they had passed, everything pointed to a large predator nearby, actively hunting. But she was just a human from a Deathworld. And what did she know about alien jungles? The night passed without incident. When dawn came, it came quickly, the bioluminescent fungi fading as natural light filtered through the canopy. They ate a quick breakfast and continued northeast. The second day was harder. The terrain grew more difficult with steep ravines and treacherous ground that shifted underfoot. Yunho nearly fell into a sinkhole hidden beneath a layer of vegetation. Only Minji's quick reflexes, grabbing him with her multiple arms, saved him from a 20-meter drop into darkness. Taemin began making jokes to lighten the mood. Most of them were about Earth and humans. "I read that humans evolved as pursuit predators," he said, laughing. They would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. "Can you imagine?" Too weak to kill quickly, so they just followed their food until it gave up and died. How pathetic, Jiwon joined in. "I read they used to throw rocks as weapons, rocks. My species was building spacecraft when humans were still banging stones together." Hana's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Let them laugh. Words did not hurt, and defending Earth would only make them mock harder. By mid-afternoon of the second day, they spotted the second beacon. It sat atop a rocky outcropping about 15 meters high. The stone was dark and porous, volcanic in origin. "Easy climb," Taemin said. He slung his rifle and started scaling the rock face, his clawed hands finding purchase easily. Hana looked around the clearing. More territorial markers, fresher than before. The undergrowth was trampled in places, showing a trail that something large used regularly. The smaller animals had gone completely silent. "We should not stay here," Hana said urgently. "This is a hunting ground. Something big uses this area." "Everything is a hunting ground to you," Do-hyun replied, not even looking at her. "Your species sees threats everywhere because Earth trained you to be paranoid. We are fine." Taemin reached the top of the outcropping and grabbed the beacon, holding it up triumphantly. "Two down. One more and we are done ahead of schedule." That was when the jungle exploded into chaos. The creature came from the undergrowth so fast that Hana barely had time to register movement. It was massive, standing 4 meters tall on powerful hind legs, 6 limbs each ending in talons as long as Hana's forearm, scales that shimmered and changed color, adaptive camouflage that had hidden it perfectly until it attacked, a jaw full of teeth designed to shear through anything, a Carvex render, the apex predator of the planet, and it was hunting them. The creature's roar was a physical force that made Hana's bones vibrate. Minji stumbled backward, her rifle falling from her hands. Yunho froze, his aquatic instincts useless against a land predator. Do-hyun tried to mount a telepathic attack, his face straining with effort, but the render's mind was too alien, too consumed with predatory hunger to effect. Taemin roared his own challenge from atop the rock, but he was too far away to help. The render charged and everything went to hell. The Carvex render moved with terrifying speed for something so massive. Its scales rippled with changing colors, shifting from purple to match the jungle, then to crimson as it charged. The ground shook with each step of its powerful hind legs. Those 6-taloned limbs spread wide, ready to grab, rip, and tear. Taemin opened fire first. His plasma rifle lit up the clearing with blue-white bolts that struck the render's armored hide. The scales absorbed most of the energy, glowing briefly where the shots landed but showing no real damage. The creature did not even slow down. Jiwon launched herself into the air with a powerful beat of her wings. She circled above, trying to draw the render's attention, her own rifle spitting plasma bolts at its head. The creature's yellow eyes tracked her movement, calculating, hunting. Its tail whipped out faster than anything that size should move. The tail caught Jiwon mid-flight. There was a sickening crack as it connected with her wing. She spiraled out of control, crashing through branches and vines before disappearing into the canopy with a scream of pain. Minji recovered her rifle and fired in controlled bursts, her multiple arms giving her stability that bipedal species lacked. The render turned its massive head toward her. She kept firing, backing up, her compound eyes wide with fear that her species rarely showed. Junho deployed an electrical net, a standard-issue tool for capturing dangerous fauna. The conductive fibers spread wide and wrapped around the render's torso. Electricity crackled across its scales. For a moment the squad had hope. Then the render roared again, that bone-shaking sound of pure rage. It flexed its muscles and the net shredded like paper. The electricity had done nothing but make it angrier. Do-hyun fell to his knees, his telepathic attack failing completely. Blood ran from his nose. Trying to mentally dominate an apex predator had nearly broken his mind. He looked up at the approaching creature with genuine fear in his large eyes. The render focused on Minji. She was still firing, still backing up, but she was not fast enough. The creature closed the distance in 2 massive bounds. One taloned limb swung in a wide arc. Minji tried to dodge. She was quick, her insectoid reflexes faster than most species. But the render was faster. The blow caught her across the thorax and sent her flying. She hit a tree trunk 10 meters away with a crunch that made everyone flinch. She slumped to the ground, not moving. Junho screamed something in his native language and fired his rifle on full automatic. The plasma bolts carved glowing lines across the render's scales but did not penetrate. The creature turned toward him with what looked like amusement in its predatory eyes. Taemin had climbed down from the outcropping and was charging toward the fight. His species were warriors, bred and trained for combat. He roared his challenge, a sound meant to intimidate prey and assert dominance. He fired as he ran, each shot carefully aimed at the render's joints and softer scales. The render met his charge head-on, 2 apex predators colliding. For a moment, Taemin held his ground. His clawed feet dug into the soil. His massive arms pushed against the render's striking limbs. His teeth were bared in a snarl of defiance. Then physics and biology asserted themselves. The render outweighed him by at least a ton. Its muscles were designed by millions of years of evolution to kill everything on Carvex 9, Taemin's view. Warrior pride meant nothing to natural selection. The render slammed into him like a cargo shuttle hitting a wall. Taemin's rifle went flying. His armor cracked with a sound like breaking stone. He crashed backward, and before he could recover, the creature was on top of him. One massive claw pinned his chest to the ground. The other 4 limbs positioned themselves to tear him apart. Taemin strained against the weight, his powerful muscles bulging, his scales flushing dark with the effort. He could not move. The render was simply too strong, too heavy, too perfect at what evolution had designed it to do. The creature's jaws opened wide. Rows of serrated teeth gleamed in the dim jungle light. Each tooth was the length of Hana's hand, designed to shear through bone and armor. The render's head descended toward Taemin's exposed throat. The proud Saurian warrior, who had mocked humans as weak and primitive, looked into the face of death and knew terror for the first time in his life. Junho was still firing, but his shots were panicked, wild. Do-hyun tried to stand but collapsed again, his mind still reeling from the telepathic backlash. Minji remained motionless against the tree. Jiwon was somewhere in the canopy, probably injured, definitely unable to help. The squad was finished. The mission was over. In another few seconds, Taemin would die, and the rest would follow soon after. That was when Hana moved. She had been standing at the edge of the clearing, her rifle lowered, her eyes tracking every movement of the fight. While the others panicked and charged and fired wildly, she had been watching, learning, understanding how the creature moved, where its weight shifted, how it attacked. Her rifle clattered to the ground. In her right hand, she gripped her combat knife. In her left, she grabbed a rock from the ground about the size of her fist, heavy and sharp-edged. "Get away from him!" Her voice cut through the chaos. It was not loud. It was not a roar like Taemin's challenge. It was something else entirely. Something primal and ancient. A sound that carried the weight of 1,000,000 years of human evolution. The voice of a species that had climbed to the top of Earth's food chain, not through strength or scales or venom, but through sheer stubborn refusal to die. The render turned its massive head toward this new sound. Its predator brain assessed the threat. Small creature, no claws, no fangs, no armor, not dangerous. The predator brain was wrong. Hana ran. Not a tactical advance, not a careful approach, a full-out sprint that would make an Olympic athlete proud. Her boots pounded against the purple soil. Her heart hammered in her chest. Adrenaline flooded her system, that ancient chemical cocktail that had allowed her ancestors to fight saber-toothed cats with nothing but rocks and fury. The render watched her come. It still had one claw pinning Taman. It could kill him and then deal with this tiny annoyance. But something in its predator. Instincts recognized a challenge that demanded immediate response. It released Taman and turned fully toward Hana. Its jaws opened wide in a display meant to terrify. Prey into freezing. Hana did not freeze. Humans never freeze when they choose to fight. They advance. At the last possible second, as those massive jaws snapped shut where her head had been a moment before, Hana dropped into a slide. The purple soil was slick from humidity. She slid beneath the creature's throat like a baseball player stealing home base. As she passed under, her knife hand struck upward, driving the blade into the softer scales of its neck. The knife barely penetrated. The scales were tough, designed to resist the teeth and claws of other predators. But it was enough to draw blood. Alien blood, darker than human blood, sprayed hot across Hana's face and uniform. The render screamed. Not a roar this time. A scream of pain and surprise. Nothing on Carvex 9 fought like this. Nothing was stupid enough to charge straight at the apex predator. Hana rolled to her feet behind the creature. Her teeth were bared in an expression that made her look less like prey and more like something that had crawled out of Earth's most violent nightmares. Her eyes were wide but focused. Her breathing was controlled despite the adrenaline. The render spun with frightening speed. It slashed with one taloned limb. Hana did not try to dodge away. Instead, she moved toward the attack, getting inside its reach where the leverage worked against the creature. The talon still connected, a glancing blow that sent her stumbling. But it was better than taking the full force. She came up bleeding from a cut across her shoulder. Her uniform was torn. The pain registered somewhere in the back of her mind, catalogued and ignored. Pain was just information. It told her she was alive. It told her she could still fight. The creature lunged again. This time Hana timed it perfectly. She sidestepped like a matador avoiding a bull, and as the massive head passed, she drove her knife into the joint where neck met shoulder. The blade sank deeper this time, finding the gap between armored scales. The render howled and thrashed. Its tail whipped around, catching Hana in the ribs and sending her flying. She hit the ground hard, rolled through the impact, and came up already moving. Her left arm hung at an odd angle. Dislocated shoulder. Her breathing was painful. Cracked ribs, probably. She had dropped the rock during the last exchange. She grabbed another one from the ground without looking. Her eyes never leaving the render. Junho had stopped firing. Do-hyun was staring with his mouth open. Taman had dragged himself to his feet and was watching in stunned disbelief. They were watching something that should not be possible. A creature that massed maybe 60 kilograms fighting an apex predator that weighed over 2,000 kilograms. It was suicide. It was insane. It was human. The Galactic Coalition Military Academy floated in orbit around Thessia Prime, a beautiful garden world where 3 moons painted the sky in shades of silver and gold. Inside the massive station, hundreds of cadets from dozens of species trained to become the galaxy's peacekeepers. The halls rang with strange languages, and the air recyclers worked overtime to accommodate beings who breathed everything from pure oxygen to methane mixtures. Hana stood in the corner of the combat training hall, watching the other cadets practice hand-to-hand techniques. She was small compared to most of them. At barely 5.5 feet tall, she looked tiny next to the hulking forms that surrounded her. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and her dark eyes tracked every movement with quiet focus. Across the mat, Taman showed off his strength to a group of admirers. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his scales gleaming green and bronze under the artificial lights. His species, the Saurians, were known across the galaxy as natural warriors. Every movement he made was powerful and precise. He grabbed a practice dummy and threw it across the room with one hand, then laughed at the impressed gasps from the watching cadets. "That is how a real warrior trains," Taman announced, his voice deep and rumbling. His yellow eyes scanned the room and landed on Hana. Not like some species who only survived because their planet was too stupid to kill them efficiently. Several cadets laughed. Hana said nothing. She had heard worse in the 3 weeks since arriving at the academy. Ji-won landed gracefully beside Taemin, her wings folding against her slender back. The Avarian female stood tall and elegant, her feathers shifting between blue and silver. Her people were known for their tactical brilliance and aerial superiority. She looked at Hana with something that might have been pity. "Be fair, Taemin," Ji-won said, her voice melodic but condescending. "Humans cannot help that they come from such a primitive world. Earth was only discovered 6 months ago. They have not had time to learn civilized behavior." "Class 12 Deathworld," muttered Do-hyun as he approached the group. The Mentari was humanoid but clearly alien, with pale purple skin and large eyes that seemed to see through people. As a natural telepath, he served as the squad leader for their training group. "I read the classification report. Earth is categorized as one of the most hostile planets ever found. The fact that humans evolved intelligence at all is remarkable, considering they had to spend most of their evolutionary energy just surviving." He looked directly at Hana, his mental voice touching her thoughts without permission. She felt him probing at her mind, analyzing her. It felt invasive and rude, but she had learned that many species did not understand human concepts of privacy. "Remarkable, yes," Do-hyun continued out loud, "but intelligence developed as compensation for physical weakness. Humans are fragile, slow, and lack any natural weapons. Their survival was an accident of persistence, not superiority." Hana clenched her jaw but kept her expression neutral. She had been taught during her briefing before leaving Earth that humanity was new to the galactic community. She represented her entire species. Every action she took would be judged as representative of all humans. So she stayed quiet, even when the mockery stung. Instructor Valen entered the training hall, his heavy footsteps making the floor vibrate. The Crothian was built like a tank, with thick armor plating covering his body and scars that told stories of 100 battles. He had fought in the expansion wars and survived encounters that killed entire platoons. "Attention, cadets," Valen barked. His voice needed no amplification to fill the enormous room. "I have your assignments for the Crucible trial." The room went silent. The Crucible trial was the final test before graduation. Every cadet had to complete it or wash out of the program. Squads were dropped on hostile planets and had to survive for 72 hours while completing mission objectives. The failure rate was nearly 30%. Some cadets died during the trial, though the Academy tried to minimize fatalities. Valen began reading assignments. Each squad learned which planet they would be sent to. Some drew easy assignments, low-level worlds with minimal danger. Others got harder planets that made even the confident cadets nervous. "Squad 7, Valen called out. That was Hana's squad. "You will deploy to Carvex 9, Class 8 Jungle Deathworld. Your mission is to retrieve 3 data beacons scattered across 40 kilometers of hostile terrain and reach the extraction point within 72 hours. Taemin grinned, showing rows of sharp teeth. "A Class 8? That is almost too easy, especially with a Deathworld native on our team." He looked at Hana, his expression mocking. "Earth is Class 12, correct? So Carvex 9 should feel like a vacation for you." The other squad members chuckled. Minji, an insectoid female with compound eyes and 4 arms, clicked her mandibles in amusement. Juno, whose species evolved in deep oceans and wore a breathing apparatus on land, made a gurgling sound that was probably laughter. "Do not underestimate Carvex 9, Valen warned, his scarred face serious. "Class 8 means the planet wants to kill you. The jungle is dense, the predators are aggressive, and the environment is actively hostile. Cadets have died there. But not as hostile as Earth, apparently," Ji-won said, glancing at Hana. "Tell me, human, what is it like growing up on a Class 12 world? I have read the reports, but they seem exaggerated. Surely your planet cannot be as dangerous as the classification suggests." Hana finally spoke, her voice quiet but steady. "Earth has its challenges." "Challenges," Do-hyun repeated, his telepathic sense reaching out again to read her emotions. Hana felt him recoil slightly, surprised by something he sensed. "You are afraid of Carvex 9, I can feel it. Your fear response is already activated just from hearing about the mission." "I am cautious," Hana corrected. "Not afraid." "There is a difference, is there?" Taemin rumbled. "On my world we have a saying, fear is what prey feels, caution is what predators practice." "Which are you, little human?" Hana met his eyes without flinching. On Earth, the difference between predator and prey is not always obvious until the fight is over. Taemin laughed, but something in Hana's tone made the laugh sound forced. Valen dismissed them to prepare for departure. The Crucible trial would begin in 2 days. Each cadet was allowed to bring standard combat gear, 1 rifle, 1 sidearm, basic survival equipment, and whatever they could carry. No heavy weapons, no orbital support, no rescue unless someone was dying. Hana walked back to her quarters alone. The hallways were crowded with cadets from hundreds of worlds speaking thousands of languages. She understood perhaps a dozen words of the common trade language, and her translator implant sometimes struggled with idioms and cultural context. In her small room, she sat on the bunk and pulled out a photograph. It showed her family back on Earth, her parents, her younger brother, all smiling at the camera. They were so proud when she was selected for the Academy. First human ever accepted, a chance to show the galaxy what humanity could do. So far, all she had shown them was that humans could endure mockery quietly. She put the photograph away and began checking her gear. The rifle was standard issue, designed to work for multiple species. It felt awkward in her hands, balanced for someone taller. The knife was better, simple and solid. She tested the edge with her thumb and nodded. At least some tools were universal. 2 days until Carvex 9. 2 days until she had to prove she belonged here. Hana lay back on her bunk and closed her eyes. She thought about home, about Earth's forests and mountains, about the summers she spent hiking with her father in the wilderness. He had taught her to respect nature, to understand that humans were part of the ecosystem, not above it. Never underestimate what wants to kill you, he had told her once, after they encountered a black bear on a trail. But never forget that you have advantages too. Humans did not get to the top of the food chain by accident. She held on to that memory as she drifted toward sleep. In 2 days, she would see if her father was right. The Carvex render circled Hana slowly. It was learning. The initial surprise had worn off, and now the predator brain was calculating. This small creature had heard it. Twice. That made it dangerous despite its size. The render's scales shifted colors, running through patterns that might have been threat displays or simply the creature processing pain and confusion. Hana circled opposite, maintaining distance, her eyes locked on the creature. Blood ran down her arm from the shoulder wound. Her ribs screamed with every breath. Her dislocated shoulder sent jolts of agony through her body with each movement. She ignored all of it. Pain was temporary. Death was permanent. She had dropped her knife during the last impact. The combat blade lay somewhere in the trampled undergrowth. All she had now was the rock in her good hand and the absolute certainty that she would not stop fighting until either she or the render was dead. The creature feinted left, testing her reactions. Hana shifted right but did not commit. Good. It was being cautious now. Caution meant respect. Respect meant she had a chance. "Hana, fall back!" Do-hyun shouted. He had recovered enough to stand, though his nose still bled from the telepathic backlash. "We will provide covering fire." "Retreat to the—" "No." Hana's voice was flat, emotionless. She could not afford emotion now. Emotion was for after the fight, assuming there was an after. "If I run, it will chase. If it chases, it will kill me. Only way out is through." The logic was simple and brutal. Earth logic: prey runs, predators chase. If you cannot outrun it, you turn and fight, because at least then you control when and where the confrontation happens. The render lunged suddenly, committing to a full attack. 6 limbs spread wide to grab, to pin, to tear. Its jaws opened wide enough to swallow Hana whole. She went low again, dropping beneath the reaching talons. But this time the creature anticipated the move. Its tail whipped around at ground level, a sweeping attack designed to catch anything trying to dodge under its body. Hana saw it coming. She could not dodge. So she jumped, straight up, using muscles in her legs that had evolved to let humans leap and climb and escape ground-based predators. The tail passed beneath her feet. For a moment she was airborne, above the tail but below the creature's center mass. She grabbed. Her good hand caught one of the render's middle limbs. Her injured arm screamed in protest, but she wrapped it around the limb anyway, using her whole body to grip tight. The creature tried to shake her off, but Hana had spent summers rock climbing with her father. She knew how to hold on when muscles screamed and fingers went numb. The render thrashed violently. It slammed the limb she clung to against a tree trunk, once, twice, 3 times, trying to crush her. But Hana had positioned herself on the inside of the limb, between the creature's body and the tree. Each impact hurt but did not crush. With her good hand, she still clutched the rock. Now she used it. She slammed it into the joint where the limb connected to the body. The armored scales here were thinner, designed for flexibility rather than protection. The rock's sharp edge bit into the scales. She hit again, and again, and again. The render's scream was different now, higher pitched. Pain and genuine distress. Purple blood welled up from the joint. The scales cracked. Hana dropped the rock and drove her fingers into the crack, spreading it wider. Her fingernails broke. She did not care. She reached deeper, finding soft tissue beneath the armor. The creature went berserk. It spun and bucked like a rodeo bull, trying desperately to dislodge this nightmare that had attached itself to its body. In its panic, it exposed weaknesses it would normally protect. Taemin finally understood what he was seeing. He grabbed his rifle from where it had fallen and fired, not at the render's armored hide, but at the leg joints Hana had identified during her observation. His shots were precise now, controlled. One leg joint buckled slightly from the plasma impacts. The render's movements became less coordinated. It was dealing with pain from multiple sources, confusion about what this small creature was doing, and now incoming fire from Taemin. Its predator brain, so effective against normal prey, was overwhelmed. Hana pulled her hand from the wound she had created and began climbing. Her injured shoulder made it agony, but she climbed anyway, up the creature's limb, onto its back, toward the vulnerable point where all predators are weak, the spine. The render understood the danger. It threw itself sideways, trying to roll and crush her. Hana saw it coming and jumped. She landed hard on the purple soil, rolled, came up running, but she was not running away. She was running toward her knife. Her fingers closed around the grip and she spun back to face the creature. The render had recovered to its feet. One leg was damaged from Taemin's fire. One limb was bleeding badly from where Hana had torn through its joint. Multiple cuts across its throat and shoulders leaked purple blood, but it was still standing. Still dangerous. Still an apex predator, Hana was in worse shape. Her shoulder was definitely dislocated. Her ribs were at least cracked, maybe broken. Cuts and bruises covered her body. She had lost blood. Her legs were shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion, but her eyes were clear. Her grip on the knife was steady, and somewhere deep in her genetic memory, something that had survived 1,000,000 years of evolution was screaming that she could win this. The render charged one more time. All or nothing. Kill this annoying prey and then recover or die trying. Hana did not dodge left or right. She did not duck under. She charged straight back. Junho later said it was the most terrifying and beautiful thing he had ever seen. Two predators, separated by millions of years of evolution on different worlds, meeting in a head-on collision that would decide which understanding of survival was correct. At the last second, Hana dropped into a slide again. But this time, as she slid beneath the render's reaching claws, she twisted her body and drove upward with her knife, both hands on the grip despite the agony in her shoulder. All her weight behind it, all her rage and pain and determination focused on 6 inches of sharpened steel. The blade punched through the softer scales under the render's jaw. It sank deep, finding the brainstem, the bundle of nerves that controlled everything. Hana held on as the creature's momentum carried it over her. She felt the blade twist, felt it grind against bone, felt the render's entire body spasm as its nervous system stopped receiving signals. The massive creature crashed to the ground behind her. Its limbs twitched. Its tail thrashed weakly, but the light in its yellow eyes was already fading. Hana lay on her back in the purple soil, her hand still gripping the knife that was buried in the render's skull. Her chest heaved as she tried to catch her breath. Every part of her body hurt. She might have broken bones. She had definitely lost too much blood. But she was alive. The clearing was silent except for Hana's ragged breathing and the dying twitches of the render. Taemin stood frozen, his rifle halfway to his shoulder. Do-hyun had fallen to his knees again, his mental senses completely overwhelmed by what he had just witnessed. Junyo had dropped his weapon entirely. From the canopy, Ji-won descended slowly on one working wing, her feathers disheveled and bloody. She landed near the scene and stared at the dead render with an expression of complete disbelief. Minji groaned from where she had been thrown. She was alive. Badly hurt, but alive. Hana finally let go of the knife and tried to stand. Her legs would not cooperate. The adrenaline was fading now, leaving behind the reality of her injuries. She managed to get to her knees before her body decided that was enough. Taemin moved first. He walked slowly toward Hannah, his expression unreadable. When he reached her, he knelt down to her level. "What are you?" he whispered. Hannah looked up at him. Blood and alien soil covered her face. Her smile was more of a grimace. "Human," she said simply. "Just human." She looked past him at the dead render. The apex predator of Carvex 9. The creature that had nearly killed their entire squad, now dead by her hand. "On Earth," she continued, her voice getting weaker. "That is just Tuesday." Then the exhaustion and pain finally overwhelmed her, and everything went dark.